as if mothers are just an apparatus that appear to fill the gaps between woman and child and ghost. That's the way it works in my family. Women are supposed to kill ourselves before we die. Sometimes my mother scares me. Sometimes she makes me scream. Usually we say very little. For a long time, I wondered about imaginary things like what makes my mother's blood move at night? What shapes do her breaths rise into? At times, I let my mother feel no more real than one man's dream of a beautiful, cursed airplane. A prayer for lifted air. It's taken me a while to appreciate that her silence is its own kind of storytelling, like maybe if we don't talk about it, the past will just turn over on its back and let the future have its way. At least the future will arrive. Though this year, on the hanging telephone, she told me about that time I read about in a book and she lived her way through. She told me about watching her friends burn in that space between old house and dirt, she said. You can watch people burn and burn a long time before you stop screaming like it's your own flesh on fire. I'm not sure if a few such details can bring ghosts back to life or only make them more opaque and less able to walk through what they please. I do know that my mother said we can't mourn every death anymore, every stillborn and burning child, every gap between person and life. I know she does her best not to grieve for herself and prays for me every day. You know that airplane they lost from Malaysia? All the passengers were found dead and naked from the force of the fall. Everyone thought it so strange we were losing objects as big as airplanes anymore, even for a few days. Once, I choked on the shape of an airplane wing and then swallowed it like a hungry scientist. And the souls of all of my mother's stories fell out, each bigger than airplanes. Let me tell you about everything they ever witnessed and never said. Let me take you to an empty airfield full of airplane bones that never bombed a soul. Let me speak into all of their haunting. So I have this theory that all candy bar names are actually euphemisms for anal sex. Almond Joy.
I gotta go.
Reese's Pieces.
We gotta go.
Butterfinger.
She gotta go.
Milky Way.
I really fucking have to use the toilet.
Anyway, the history of colonialism is a history of indigestion, right? So one of the things that we had the displeasure of doing this year was traveling to the United Kingdom. One of the things that's offensive about British colonialism, among many, is that at one point, the British literally owned 2/3 of the landmass in the world, stole everything, but they still can't cook, right? They literally took all those spices and put them into their pumpkin spice lattes. But anyway, colonialism is a history of indigestion. There's been this remedy that people have used in East Asia for many millennia to address indigestion issues, and MIT discovered it a few years ago, so it's new. But it's this thing called poop therapy or fecal transplants, where people who identify as having good digestion will donate their shit to other people who do not identify as having good digestion, and then those people will consume it in tiny capsules to repopulate their internal microflora. In case you didn't know, there are 10 times more microflora in your gut than cells in your entire body. Than people on this earth. You are never alone. Even in Manhattan, there are always microflora here for you. But anyway, 2/3 of your immune system is found in your gut, just like at one point the British owned 2/3 of the world. Isn't it lovely when metaphors align? It makes my job really easy. But I read this article about a set of friends and lovers who've gone through this very radical, intimate, blah, blah, blah process. So I decided to write a love poem about it. With the rise of industrial modernity, there's an increasing trend of new and different kinds of GI disorders, and the rising trend of lovers donating their shit to each other. This brings important meaning to phrases heard across communities of color, such as, That's white people shit. Or, I do not take shit from white people. And I do not take shit from white people. Because sharing shit means sharing microflora, which can be an act of decolonial love. It says, I want to populate your insides. I want the world to move through you simple, the way it moves through me. I want you to struggle less. I want you to feel ease. I want us to share an apple and acquire the same knowledge from it. They say that when we are born, we have all the flora that will ever mark our personhood, and place taking of someone else's flora willingly says, I want to internalize the moment that you were born. That space-time when your skin was hanging between the atmosphere and someone else's vagina, when Orion snipped your umbilical cord, when Leo himself roared into your cry, when Neptune and Pluto were dethroned and Uranus became the final stop in our solar system. I want to know that moment. And think, if you douche before every hookup, honey, it is not because there is something filthy about the way your body works, but indeed, you do not need the unloving people who fuck you to have access to your origin story. Microflora whisper more about our histories than we ever do in bed. They are the kin we carry with us always. They die when we are disempowered. Which is why I do not take shit from white people, or from anyone who doesn't know how to love me. Woo. We have a special seat reserved just for you.
It'll be amazing.
Thank you. I have a confession. I have this insatiable addiction to coffee.
Fair trade coffee.
Fair trade coffee in NPR membership months. I want to wake up to that smell next to me. That and freshly pressed New Yorkers, and moleskin covers, and sweaty yoga mats.
See, the truth is,
I'm a snow queen.
I just have this thing
for white people. Can't help it. It's the way they eat steak for dinner. I know I'm a vegetarian, but I would make exceptions.
I've heard that white men have huge
empires.
I've heard that they're really, really good in
gentrification. Once, a white woman asked me where I was from. No, where I was really from. Then she told me she was going to India with her nonprofit that year. And I said, oh, tell me more. Oh, take me with you.
The first white man I slept with was so excited when I told him he was sexy. Like, I was the first person to say that. Like, ever. In the entire world. You have to understand. I like it that way. Like your veins are showing. Like your skin could bleach out your clothes.
Like your SPF level is 9,000.
Like what?
It just turns me on.
Like, I would love to cuddle in the ugliest sweaters with you and listen to David Sedaris and plan our future lives together. We can rent one apartment in Brooklyn and the other in the Mission and stare at the same K-shaped constellations together at nighttime. I want you to pick me up on the way back from your unpaid internship. I want to jam in your Prius to your hip-hop. I want you to tell me more about your gap year.
I want to map the lines on your palms to the lines you drew in Africa. I want to get my name tattooed on your arms in Sanskrit and then in Chinese. I want us to make black friends together. I want us to have brunch with them.
You know, I just have to see this. I really want us to get married in San Francisco. I want to pick up our tribal print tuxedos together at American Apparel. I want to vote for Hillary with you. And name our ethnically adopted children Hope and Post-Race.
On our wedding night, you will tell me about all the women of color artists that make you feel like a diva, such as Beyonce. And you will awkwardly gyrate me without your hips.
Later that night, you will pull me aside and take nude photos of me, like that time you randomly selected me from the security line in the airport.
I love that.
And when we're couch surfing together on our first honeymoon night,
I will call you master, because colonialism never had a safe word.
And you will whisper tenderly in my ear,
don't worry, I'm not racist like that.
Then fuck me like you are.